So just a quick introduction. My name's Sam Mitchell. I am from Liverpool, but I now obviously work at Slalom. What I want to talk about today is something that's sort of came to me over the last few years, and it came with experience when we're talking about working with new users of Power BI. So a lot of the time we'll deliver projects to analysts, data engineers, etc. They'll understand the data. Sometimes we might deliver it to partner clients. We might deliver it to people who've never used Power BI before. And this is just a little bit to sort of show the tricks that I've used over the years to help these people navigate through the reports, become familiar with the reports, understand the data, and also a few tricks to sort of help them understand how to use Power BI itself. Okay. So just a little bit about myself. As I say, senior consultant to Slalom from Liverpool. I started working at a company called CAD-Find back in 2014, just a team leader. We submitted some KPIs into a report at the end of each shift. And then we passed that to the reporting team. That was all done in Excel. Later on, they expanded a little bit. We decided let's adopt Power BI. That's where I've sort of started my journey with Power BI. Sorry, can everyone hear me at the back? A little bit louder? Okay, no problem. In 2017 is when I first started my journey with Power BI. I did a little bit of work there, a little bit of data modeling, and then I moved on to the Very Group. So has anyone here shopped on very.co.uk? Yeah, so we're all quite familiar with the online website there, yeah. I worked there for 3 years. We worked in the logistics area, and we also worked with our customer segmentation. So we were understanding how our customers were purchasing our data and what we were doing to sort of support our customers in terms of all the credit that they were dealing with as well. 3 years of Very, I then moved on to Slalom, which is where I am today. Joined here in September, part of the data and analytics team, and I'm sort of the Power BI subject matter expert for Slalom, basically in Manchester. So I try and deliver as much as possible, help engage with our clients and help them understand the product, the tool, and how to use it. So we'll do things like deliver dashboard in a day, we'll do additional training, and we'll also help support our clients in understanding why Power BI might be the right tool for them. Okay. What are we talking about today is 3 different things. So I'm going to be talking about brand identity, and some might say, why are we talking about design when it's to do with Power BI? I'm going to show you why that might be important and why it can sort of bring reports to life and also engage those users. What about me is a simple trick that we use with row level security. Does anyone know what row level security is? And is there anyone that doesn't? Okay, well, I'll go on to that later on. And then I'm going to show you another thing that I use as well, which is a sort of smart way of using bookmarks in Power BI to help people navigate their way through, using a certain page in a report. Okay. So when we're using Power BI and we're working with our stakeholders, we go through the usual development lifecycle. So we'll talk about the scope of the project. We'll understand why we need that project, why we're going to deliver, how we're going to deliver the data, and what we're going to extract from that data as well. We'll then go on to build the report. We'll go back and forth with the stakeholders. We'll iterate. We'll build out the product, and then we'll sign off. Happy days. Everyone's happy. Except there's always one bit that people tend to forget, and that's the bit what we're sort of left to do, which is deliver the training for those people as well, ensuring that they're able to sort of use those reports. So, has anyone ever delivered training with Power BI in any capacity? Okay, brilliant. That's you. So, a few considerations when we're doing this is when you're delivering, whether it be on Teams, in person, however you want to do it, what's the audience size? How can we keep those people engaged if there's many people, such as there is here today? And have they had any previous experience with Power BI? So we want to make sure that they're familiar with the product. And if they're not, we need to work at the rate what they're going to be able to pick it up. The challenges that come with that is, first of all, if we're delivering it to people who've never used Power BI, they've never used the data before, we need to help them understand that data. We also want them to understand the purpose of the report, so what they're trying to achieve by extracting the information from there. And we want to ensure that they're actually engaged throughout that training. And that's what I'm really going to touch points on today, is the whole engagement part of it. Okay. So who's the training for? Usually, it could be for the analysts. Data analysts tend to, know how to navigate data. They tend to understand. They'll go through the documentation. Sometimes you might have the non-technical users. These are the people, again, that might not be familiar. They don't know how to read documentation. They might not know where to go for the documentation. And then a really important one as well could be, your partners, your clients, external clients, whatever it might be. We're delivering products to them that we need them to know how to use. We need them to understand the value of the product we've built. and also how to, navigate that again. When I talk about brand identity, that's when it becomes key. If we're delivering a product to a new user of Power BI, but they're also a potential client, we want them to sort of be wowed. We don't want them to sit there and see the usual same, page after page after page of visualizations. We want them to see something that means something to us as a business. So if we were Slalom, we'd really want to sell our brand. Okay. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration today, which is going to be based on Premier League data. And I'm going to show you two versions of the same report. And basically what we're going to do here is say, the first side of the report is what we sort of build out quite quickly. It might be a very basic report, but using the exact same data, I'm going to show you how we can bring that to life using simple things as images, color, conditional formatting. Okay, that's my PC. Excuse me. So, just move this over. So what we've got here is, again, it's very simple data. All it is team, player, and game data in the Premier League. What I've done here is just tapped into the Fantasy Premier League API. The information was on the screen there. I'll put that up at the end, or I'll share it with people if they want to, find out how to use that information. It is free. They don't have public documentation, but there's lots of user-created documentation online if you want to look for that. So what I'm showing you here is some very basic KPIs. Most goals scored by club, conceded, and the highest average attendance. And then we talked about the player stats, goal scorers, assists, and saves. On the right, we've got the Premier League table, which I'm sure most people have seen and wouldn't know how to read. However, it's very simple. A lot of the things that I look at here is, okay, we've got to read through this to understand where a certain team is. So I'm not going to read towards the bottom and then stop here because that's really embarrassing and we should be higher up. So let's not talk about that. If we go through the pages, this is a very simple table. We want to just sort of bring that out. So we'll go here. It's a wider table. It's got more information. Most goals scored, goals conceded, goal difference, etc. We've got a few notes on the side that'll say, what are the qualifying positions and who gets relegated in what positions. Moving on. We've got a few basic visuals again, just saying, here's the top attack, top defense, and top in bookings. As you can see, very similar. It's easy to get confused about what page you might be on. And then we have the club page, so we can just get some information on the club. So, biggest win, biggest defeat, some key stats on those top performing players. And then we've got a player profile as well. So if we wanted to look at a certain member of a team, we can get their stats by game week if we wanted to. Okay. Difference what I'm going to do now is, and that is just off the screen, so please bear with me. If I click here, this is where I'm using the same data, but I've brought this report to life. And this is just taking some inspiration from the brand identity of the Premier League. So, I've gone online, looked at what their brand might sort of feel like. Some companies have brand guidelines. That's fantastic. That's what we want to get involved with. And then we've got a different report. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So just by introducing a bit of color, it becomes a lot more interesting. We can easily separate things. So we've taken green, which is the club level information. We've got the source of cyan color at the bottom there, or magenta. That is the player level information. On the right-hand side, we've got some conditional formatting, which will show us what the brackets are for those relegation or qualifying positions. And we've introduced a badge because, now you can, whatever team you support, I bet your eyes just is drawn to it immediately because it's much easier to identify. When we're talking about navigation and we're talking about leading people through reports and making sure that they're able to sort of go through it without being told or without asking questions, we try and lead in a subtle way. So if I hover over this and I'm trying to look at a team, you'll see that that's blacked out now and it's saying view the expanded table. Rather than going to a different page, I can click on that, use a simple trick of a bookmark to bring it up, and then we've got much more information. Again, we're introducing more color. So I don't know if you saw it on the previous one. The table did have form on there, but it was just WWL as letters. You probably missed it. Now it's nice and bright, lots of color, easy to differentiate wins between losses. We've got a legend rather than some notes because nobody wants to read notes. And then you can actually interact with the report now as well. So at the bottom, I've got a little tip because tips are easy, tips are simple to use, and it doesn't get in the way. We want to tell people how to use the report. If you right click, you'll be able to drill through to a club. So if I just choose Arsenal at the top there, we've got the drill through feature. We can go through to the club profile. Again, introducing more color, separating things out into certain boxes makes it easier to understand. We've got a nice picture of Mikel Arteta with his fantastic hair. We've got our form, we've got the club, and then we've got, again, just the same information: biggest win, biggest defeat, average attendance, who's the biggest threat. Let's put a little picture down there as well, just to bring more life into the report. And if we wanted to, again, we don't want to go away from the page. We want to try and stay where we are. We can just say to people, there's a filters pane. Let's just change that to Arsenal. It's as simple as just scrolling down. We're in Manchester, so let's just show that. And then we've got, Manchester United as well. Of course, we don't want to embarrass anyone, so we have sort of hid that there. Yeah, we won't take that any further. But yeah, again, very simple to change through the information. If you wanted to go back, that back button is still active, so we can just go there and it'll take us back to where we were. Again, a big button at the top telling us to close the thing. We're not trying to find things on the page. It's really clear and easy to understand. And that's sort of how we go from there. Going back to those key performance stats that we had, so top goals, top assists, spread across 4 pages. If I click here, it's all on one page. We brought it to life again. We've got some information about the player. We've got more stats at the bottom because we want people to, not navigate to different locations. We want them to easily find the information pertinent to them. And we can actually just, hover over and say, okay, well, who does Harry Kane play for? Let's use smart tooltips just to sort of give a little bit more information again. If you wanted to, you can click on it and it'll, show you more information for that player. And you can do that for anyone there. Taking that away, we can go on goals. We can change the statistic. So rather than going to those different pages, we just go, okay, show me the assists. And that's the same. It's all the same information. We're just using DAX to pull in the information in a way where we'll say, if it's the same, look at assists, let's pull the top ranked information for assists. All in one place, easy to navigate, and again, nice to look at. Okay. Another thing that I want to talk about, which tends to get lost when I try to explain it to people, is yes, we're using Power BI. However, it is a visualization tool. That doesn't necessarily mean we need visualizations on every single page. So if somebody says, I want to find information about Brighton or let's do Man City, people within Manchester again, just have a navigation. Just have something where it's easy for people to go through and find that information. So I'll click on Manchester City. We're back at the club profile, and then we can, quickly go back and forth with that. Same with the players. We have a table, and all we need to do, if you want to filter it by club, we can do that again. And then if I wanted to, I could just say, give me Gabriel, like so. Enter it in, and there's the players for Gabriel. One more thing with navigation, always use bookmarks and make it very clear for people to understand. And I'm not sure if you can see it at the back, so I do apologize. We've got a little grayed out button here, but when you click on a player, it changes color. It's very bright, easy to sort of highlight. You can click on that and then navigate through to that player's information. Okay. And that's just a sort of quick insight on how we can sort of bring it to life when we're talking about our reports. Brand identity, to me, is entirely important because we want people to be wowed when we're looking at these things. And when we're talking about making it easy for those people to navigate through, when we've got new users to Power BI, they're going to look at this and go, hang on a minute, how did you do that? Or how can I look at that? When we've delivered training sessions, we'll do something that is sort of very one note, like what we showed previously. People will be there, they'll be listening, but they're not engaged. When we do something like this, they're actually sort of saying, can you send me that? And so I can have a go right now. And then, it helps them. It drags them along the way and it gets them involved, basically. And that's why I feel it's really important that we show stuff like this off. Okay. So I am just going to go back, sorry. Oh, sorry, excuse me. So again, I'm just going to leave this on the screen very quickly in case anyone wants to get the QR code. That's a piece of documentation for how to access the API. Okay. Yeah, we're all good. Okay. And that's when I talk about brand identity. When we go online and we see certain images, we'll look at things and we see the Slack logo. We immediately understand, what that company is, what they're for, and we know exactly, that's what we want to become. So as report developers, we should be thinking about our brand content and what we can deliver for us and for our clients, if you have clients. Okay. There's 2 more things I want to talk about today, which are separate from this. And this is to do with assisting people again through the reports. So I'm going to show you another report. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Curiosity. is the engine of achievement. It's a bit of a quirky quote, but it is genuinely true. I mean, how many times has somebody gone onto Wikipedia, been reading about an article, and then suddenly you're 25 articles deep because you're just so interested in what it is. People who are curious want to do more, they want to learn more, and they want to find out more. And that's why I find it really important that we want to, enable those people to be curious. Okay. And it's most of all, it drives conversation. So the next slide, or the demo I'm going to do, is going to be involved with a report that we use in-house. So this is a report that I built, which tracks what we call workday feedback. So when we work with our colleagues, our feedback is massively important. We work, across team, across market, and working with a different country at the moment. So, it's important that when we're working with those people, they're feeding back exactly what we need to know, and our teams are aware of that. So this is a feedback report that will just give us a count of feedback by badge, and then our people can go in, see how their feedback's going. Our team leaders can go in and say, great, my team's performing really well in what regard, or, they might have done a great piece of work and they haven't received feedback, so we want to find out why. Okay. So bear with me. And I'll just try and find it at the top there again, sorry. So this is our colleague feedback report, and it's a very simple report. As I say, it just gives us the count of feedback. And when we say by badge, it's just like a bit of category. So, we categorize our feedback. We have it over time, and then we have it by team. On the other pages, we'll track it by different users. And what I want to show today is basically how we do this, and how we can highlight it for certain people. So if I just switch to the Power BI file itself, if I can find that. And I'll just move it onto the right screen. Oh, there we go. So what you might see is that data and analytics is sort of highlighted blue. It is slightly confusing, this bit, so I do apologize. That's not the highest ranking thing. What that actually is that I'm part of the data and analytics team. So when I log in, it's immediately going to say, your DNA, look at the blue one, because that's what's important to me. But if somebody else logs in, what we can do is we can use row level security. And what we can do is just very simply say, okay, let's highlight it for that person as well. Oh, excuse me, sorry, we've got a bit of, I'll type it in. So those familiar with row level security, usually when you do something like this, it will filter down the information, and it will only show the information that's, visible to that person. We made a conscious decision to say, no, we don't want to do that. We actually want to show people, how much feedback is coming in, and we want to be able to say, this is where it sits amongst the rest. So rather than using general row level security and filtering down the information, we used DAX to sort of say, let's apply conditional formatting to those elements based on that person's user principal name. And for those not familiar, the user principal name is basically the email address that you'll log into Power BI with, your Microsoft AD account. Okay. So when they log into that report, that'll pop up for them. Okay. Now, if you just bear with me, I'm just going to get a note because I have, of course you can.
So that still just
Yes, so they can view all the information and
just
yes, of course. Yeah, and the reason we do that is, again, just we want to draw them to the information that's important to them. I've got a better example that I'll just demonstrate now, where it's a long list of names, and if you're scrolling through, you're reading through and you're trying to understand what's going on. So I'll just show you what I mean with that. So just bear with me again a moment. Okay, so if we're looking at different roles again, I'm just going to go to the next page. And this is a user page, basically. So what we can do is we can see a little bit more information. And just like I mentioned then, Ben, we have a list here down the side. It's very long, And what if I'm a people leader and I've got a team of people who I want to track their feedback? I don't want to sit there and sort of scroll through that list and read them one by one. we can use row level security and filter it down, but again, our conscious decision was to show it all. So what I can do is, again, using the highlighting, bear with me, sorry. I'll just change this here to a person who is a people leader. And now what you'll see is that the information highlights for them. So rather than scrolling through that list and taking a long time reading each one, I can quickly scroll. Oh, there's a blue one. So that person's part of my team. And I can continue to do that. It highlights that we're part of the Manchester market, that I'm in the client leadership team. And, any information that you want to highlight, you can apply that using DAX. And it's essentially a lookup for the person's ID, their user principal name. And then we take it to the conditional format and bit and apply that with DAX. Okay. I'm happy to demonstrate that if anybody has any questions, if we have time at the end. Okay. The next thing I want to show, which is the last piece, so I'm just going to go back to the browser version of this, is where we want to demonstrate if somebody is completely new to Power BI, they've just been thrown a report and they're not quite sure where to start. They can see stuff on the page and they can see, okay, there's a navigation at the top. That's fantastic. But what does it mean? And how do I work with certain elements of this report? So anyone familiar with bookmarks? What bookmarks are sort of like a bit like a web URL where we can click something and then that information will become available in a dialog box. We can apply filters with it. But what I'm going to do is create what we'd sort of see as an FAQ or like a tutorial. Okay. So along the navigation along the top here, I've got this little help icon and it simply says, click here to see more on the report. So I'll click there and this dialog box will open. It'll tell us a little bit about the report. And then we've got some sort of figures here, some bullet points here. What I'm going to do is just click begin tour because all it's going to do is cycle through these points here. So when I click begin tour, it shows me, it says at the top, this is the navigation. This is where you can go to new pages. You go again, it'll say, this is a filter. So we call it a slicer, but to most people, non-technical people especially, it's a filter. And when you say slicer, they have no idea what you're talking about. So I'll explain, use the filter to, use the information on this page. Control click if you want to select multiple items. Of course, we can change that if we wanted to. Most importantly, we can actually do this. If I do it by practice, we can still use it while these dialog boxes are open. Okay, and you can see the information in the background's changing there. If I continue to go on, it'll just tell us a little bit more. So we've got feedback by badge. It's explaining what the badge is. We'll do it again. Some people in our business are familiar to the badge, not by the name, but by the actual image of the badge. So what I've built in is just another bookmark that'll show a different view of those badges, because that's what people can be familiar with. We can change that again and go back and forth. So I'll just change that back there again. And as we cycle through this bookmark, it's telling people how to use the report. So as you can see here, we've got a time-based report. When we hover over, we see these little arrows at the top. I know it's for drilling up and down. So if I want to view it by month, quarter, etc., if that person wasn't familiar, we're now explaining it so they can quickly go again, still test it while it's with the bookmark and continue to go through. And that'll help them. If at any point they don't want to see any more information, just click anywhere and click close, or each of the dialog boxes has a little close icon at the top at all times. Okay. So they're the sorts of things that I wanted to demonstrate today to say, we can help people working through the report. We can help them understand how to use Power BI without being technical. It's our job to make sure that these people aren't attending constant sessions. We don't want them to be coming back to us asking many questions as well, because, we also have our own things on. So it's important, of course, we're going to help them when we can, but if we can reduce that, that helps everyone. Okay. So. That's where we all become one team and everything becomes amazing. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening to me. And if you do have any questions, please do let me know. Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Yes.
I think one big takeaway, Power bookmarks, when we set out different pages, almost like the first one showed us.
Yeah.
So I think really will be valuable for us to put some time into that, really think about how people can navigate through.
Of course, and I can show how to do that. So I'll actually do it very quickly just to give you a quick understanding of how you do that. Am I okay for time? Yeah. Happy days. Okay, so if I just go back to the report, and I'll just stop viewing. So the way it works is we know bookmarks can be quite painful to work with. And again, that's where it's our job to sort of make it simple for the end user when they're getting the finished product. It's a bit like, doing QA on a piece of software. So if we just go to the different views here, I'm going to bring this down a little bit because I can't see the header. So bear with me. There we go. Now I am using the latest version of, there we go, that's a bit better. The latest version of Power BI. So you will see something that looks quite different up here. So now we've got the visuals up here. If that's a bit unfamiliar to you, it's in the preview features. So if you enable that, it'll help you. It's boss. And it's really, honestly, it's such an improvement on what we've all been used to. Oh. It is, yes. So if I click on this this sort of icon here, rather than going on the side and we can see where our data is, you can't see the the fields that we want to put on. You can see on the right hand side here, it all pops up here. If you wanted to change the title, you can actually just double click a title now, rather than having to go through into those different sort of buried menu options. Okay, but what I want to show you with the bookmarks is if I just go up the top here and find view, bookmarks, we'll just find it on the right here. I've got these all here. So what these bookmarks are just grouped elements of the report. So when you're clicking on this and you're seeing that everything's grayed out, it's just a black shape with a bit of transparency down. The bit at the back is just a bit of white. It's a white shape with rounded corners. It's all very simple stuff, just layered on top. Group it all together and then sort of have it set up correctly. So this bit will look a little bit messier, but what you can see along the top here is all of those grouped icons. So as you click through, it's going to open up and make all of these different elements visible. So with all the things that you can see there, I'm sure you can admire that it is quite a bit of a pain to set up. But once it's set up, this has gone a very long way with some of our clients, and they're very happy that we're introducing things like this because it just makes their lives so much easier. So if you want me to go into a little bit more information on that, I can go to the side in a little bit and show you a bit more on that. Well, that's exactly it. So, we deliver training all the time. We always say, do a few videos. Don't do a 20-minute video because no one's going to listen to a 20-minute video. Put it into sections. But even then, if people message us again, we'll say, with the videos on SharePoint, the videos here, they won't go and see it. They'll just ask the question because people just want to know the answer quite quickly. Some people will, but we always know that there are people who just need to know now, and that's absolutely fine. But this is where we can help those people along. Okay. Any more questions? Yes. Oh, sorry. What's that? Sorry. So, yeah, so Power BI does have a lot of accessibility features built in. Alt text I'm not familiar with, I do apologize, but Oh, alt text, sorry, I misheard you, my apologies. Yeah, alt text is built in. Yeah, so accessibility is quite enriched in Power BI right the way down. So, it can automatically high contrast all the images as well. So yeah, that is available. Yeah.
The user also has turn on whatever sound published his report on, or choices of high contrast directly in the browser. But Sam could also make sure that his report is high contrast as well. And using, there's various tools on the web to make sure that your report reaches as many people as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's sort of a persistent view as well. So if you turn that on, it will remain on for you until, for example, your cookie's clear. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. No. Yeah. So I'll show you that now. So I understand, and that is a pain point of Power BI, unfortunately. Unless it's a new feature that I'm not aware of, I will just demonstrate what you're talking about. So what he's talking about here is when we're going into the service, bookmarks are visible to everyone. So if I go here, it'll say, here's your personal bookmarks. You can add your own. So if you save a view, then you can, if you find a desired view, you can then save it and quickly go back to it later, rather than clicking on multiple different slices, going to different pages. It can be saved. what he's talking about is when we go to show more bookmarks, you can see every single bookmark here. And unfortunately, there's no way for me to hide them. So if somebody did find their way to this menu, they might start, clicking things, and it might just get a little bit confusing, and things might not be working. So it's really important that we set them up in the correct way. And one of the ways that we can tackle it, we can't hide it, is many people enable bookmarks for all visuals. It is an option, but there's also an option to enable bookmarks for the specific visuals that you're using. So for example, I have 2 at the bottom there, and I don't think I have it set up, but I'd love to have been able to show that off. When we give and receive feedback, we just want to click here and it'll change the visual for us. So I'm just going to close this, sorry. You'll see here, that's feedback received, that's feedback given. It's just a quick way to switch between. But if I say here, let me just see which ones these are. So these 2 here, it actually does, yeah. So if I open this, hopefully in the background, it won't mess with the rest of the report. Yeah, so I've done it on just those visuals. And that's where you can then still be careful to ensure that those people aren't breaking what you're intending to sort of present. Yeah. Any more? Yeah. Yeah. So the reason we do that, sorry, go on. Well, I was going to say, again, that was one of our conscious decisions. With when we want to do it and apply the row level sort of elements without filtering down. So if I go back to the dev version again, I could say, go to modeling. Where is it? I do apologize. Next one along. There we go. So yeah, I can go on manage roles. Let me just close it one more time and just close this because I don't want to see this. There we go. If I go on manage roles, I can say, yeah, I do have a people leader. So I've enabled actual row level security for that if we ever wanted to use it. So I'll view the role as a people leader, and you will see that will filter down. That's what you're familiar with. Yeah. If you want to do it with just the elements and not everything else, what you do is I'll just try and find a DAX measure here. I'll show you how to do this. Now, since Power BI has been updated, there are better ways of doing this with DAX. It has been improved. However, all I'm doing, if I just increase the size, oh, sorry, bear with me. If I just increase the size on this, should be a bit easier to read. I'm saying, okay, give me the selected team member, and then just give me their sort of principal name. Whoever's being selected when we're talking about the view, so I put in a fake name before and that brought up that view. If nothing's chosen, just choose the default user principal name, and that's the person's email who's viewing the report. So I'm viewing the report, it's my email. Yeah. However, if we wanted to show only the information or highlight only the information for them, I'm going to say, okay, well, what practice are they part of? I'm just doing a very simple lookup to say, get the practice where the email address is either the one that we've selected or the user principal name. And then that's basically going to say, okay, highlight that for me. The final element to that is when we just apply that conditional formatting. So if I just, move that back down there. If I go on here and then go to the formatting, now it is a little bit different, but when you see this bit, that should be familiar. We'll go to the columns and you'll see I've got conditional formatting applied there. When we've done that lookup, all I'm saying is that person's name, aligned to that practice? If it's what, and then I've applied it true and false. I believe these days you can actually just pull the name in itself, which is a much better improvement. But I built this in an older time, so I've had to say, is it true or false? So if it's true, highlight blue. If not, highlight gray. And then it's a few steps, but again, it makes it much easier for those people when they're logging in to sort of quickly draw their eyes to that part of the report. Okay. And again, if you need more information on that, I'm happy to show you in a moment. Yeah. Thank you. Any more? Okay, no worries. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Oh, sorry, go on. Right at the end. It is. Yeah. So this is quite a simple report, and if we're talking about the report itself, it took me a week, John, something like that. It was really quick. It took me 2 days to do those bookmarks because you've got to get it really aligned. Yeah, it's got to be aligned to those visuals, that we're looking at. So when you're seeing a gap out of the grayed out area, I'm specifically trying to draw that out for each one. Then I've got to think of the information, get the little bubbles that pop up, align those to it. And as we said before, making sure that it's not easily breakable by people clicking on bookmarks here and there. So yeah, it is a tedious process. However, I believe it's a really good way of helping people through the report. Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks, John. Yeah. So yeah, if there isn't any more questions, again, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.